Hello! Welcome to the Wulff Den. Today, I have with me, not Will.
I'm not Will.
Mikey, 20 Miles.
Nope.
Mike Ventimiglia. Writer. Singer-songwriter. All around. Okay, guy. Why are you here?
I'm here to talk about comic books in particular and the continuity that everybody loves to pick apart and speculate and yell and bicker about.
So you mean the timeline of Marvel, and specifically Marvel and DC Comics?
Yes, particularly those two, because they've been in publication for a very long time. So having many writers, revolving door of different talents come in and out, there's a lot of inconsistencies that come along with their different characters. And, you know, some are some aren't that bad. Some are pretty terrible. But the question is, can I curse?
Yes.
Does it even matter whether
I'm
or
gonna
not?
have to bleep that. What do you have here?
I have the 2006 Marvel Encyclopedia. I say that because the year is very important. If you read Marvel Comics...
Oh, Marvel especially.
Yeah, every year they have an event, and it irrevocably changes the continuity. And the next year, the new event changes the continuity back to what the old event changed it from. So it's a perpetual state of flux where nothing really changes for too long. Just ask Dan Slott. Can we get a little bubble link in to Dan Slott's Twitter page?
I'm gonna put his face.
Good.
Because I hate his face.
I hate Dan Slott. Sorry, Dan.
I did notice this book has a little bit of wear and tear. Like you've been, like you use it a lot.
This book, honestly, if I can be honest with the internet, has been sitting in my bathroom since I've gotten it. And honestly, I've worked through it a handful of times having it in that position. Because, you know, sometimes you're in there longer than you thought, you know? But the question that I want to address specifically, and I don't even have an answer per se, is continuity really that important? Part of me says yes, because you're building an expansive universe with these characters and you're writing these stories, and it evolves further and further and further, which is why publishers have allowed time to pass in continuity, which is cool. But at the same time, if you constantly build on continuity, it makes everything inaccessible unless you read everything, which, as Bob so astutely pointed out when we were in Starbucks once, which makes The Walking Dead very hard to follow. You can't just hop on. You have to read everything from the beginning, which is cool, but at the same time, major publishers don't want that for Batman because they don't want to have readers go back to 1940 or 1939, pick up every single issue and be like, okay, I understand why Batman is fighting a werewolf. No one really cares.
Another thing about The Walking Dead, if you are watching the show and then you go and pick up one of the latest comic books, you're going to be completely lost and
probably pissed.
Very upset, yeah.
There's no Daryl, alright? I'll just tell you that.
Yeah, there's no Daryl. With a company like Marvel, they're so big. People have been reading them for so long. And they like to have all of their characters meet up. That's a big deal with them. They need continuity for that.
Definitely.
But they keep screwing up their continuity.
One thing that Marvel is very big on is flavor of the month type deals, where it's not necessarily what's best for this character or what's best with this story. Now, before I go any further, I should preface it and say that they've gotten a lot better with this. This was a big problem for Marvel in the 70s and especially in the 80s, even in the 90s and the 2000s, and probably still a little bit today. Marvel creates a backlog of history and then they ignore it. So they'll introduce something like the Legion of the Unliving, for example, who is led by Kang the Conqueror, who resurrects or abducts characters from right before their deaths in their time streams and faces them against the Avengers. Bucky Barnes, spoiler alert, he's the Winter Soldier. He was never dead. His arm got blown off when he was on a ship, and then the Russians came over and they were like, let's give him a metal arm, wipe his memory, and make him the most badass assassin ever. No one knew he was alive all this time because he was a covert agent. awesome. Ed Brubaker again, link to that. Great idea.
I want to point out, not really a spoiler because it's the same actor.
True.
So you don't, and I will, in a previous Wolf Den episode, we'll spoil it, right?
But I guess what I'm trying to say is with doing something really cool like that in comics, that for a long time it was a general rule that you couldn't resurrect Bucky Barnes along with Jason Todd, who was resurrected the same year, a few months apart from Bucky, and Uncle Ben, who was probably going to eventually find his way back to living in Marvel.
The rule used to be among comic book writers that Jason Todd's dead. That's it. Forever. That's it. And then he came back, and then they're like, well, Uncle Ben's dead forever, never coming back. Now they're on Uncle Ben. One day he'll come back. He's come back a couple times.
Yeah, he pops up in like little glimpses of Peter's memory, especially with what's going on with Superior Spider-Man, where Peter Parker is trapped in his own mind, and I'd really not. That's a separate conversation I'd rather keep out of this. Anyway, the Legion of the Unliving inserts Bucky Barnes, okay? So, granted, it's Kang the Conqueror, and he travels all these time streams, and he abducts people from right before they're dead. Okay, so maybe Bucky wasn't dead when Kang took him, but there was the moment before death. So it's implied that Bucky is dead. Also, it's very unclear in every source that I've searched for the last 5 minutes, which was my research. It doesn't really tell you if Bucky was taken from a time stream or if he was resurrected, because the Legion of the Unliving, is composed of people who are resurrected and abducted from their timelines. So, my first point is, if Bucky is resurrected, it's not Bucky, because Bucky's never dead. Right? But if it is Bucky, and he's taken from the time stream, there's an implication that he does die if he's taken the moment before his death. So, Marvel Comics, which one is it?
Well, that must have... Well, judging by the artwork, a beautiful...
I believe the team debuted in 1975, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say, judging by that, this
1975
seems a lot older than the Winter Soldier.
Definitely.
So, how was that writer supposed to know that they were going to bring him back as the Winter Soldier?
That's the beauty of continuity. You don't just say, I have an idea for this character, and we should just do it, regardless of what he's been doing. Or, if you stick to that, then you could potentially lose out on a lot of great character moments that necessarily don't fit inside of continuity, which branches off into miniseries or original graphic novels.
What would you have had the writer do? Because...
I honestly...
Because do you think the guy, whoever wrote the Winter Soldiers...
Ed Brubaker, don't blaspheme. Okay.
When Ed Brubaker wrote the Winter Soldier origin, would you have him make excuses for this story that was probably terrible?
Absolutely not. I personally have no problem with this continuity. I'm just being an asshole for the sake of making an argument. I think it's interesting that things like this exist, because this is a throwaway arc that's not really important. It doesn't change anything. A handful of people probably remember it, or there's a lot of people who are going to remember it and bombard this video with just hate comments. How could you forget the Legion of the Unliving?
Nobody is going to know what the hell you're talking about.
I know. I know this. I don't have an issue with them using Bucky Barnes. I'm just trying to make a point and saying, is it important to acknowledge every single facet of somebody's continuity, or just paint in broad strokes? DC's doing it with the New 52. They're not wiping their universe clean. They're just like, some of this stuff happened, not all of it did. We don't really know when it happened. We'll kind of tell you when it fits our needs. In some instances it works, in other ones it's a little convoluted. The whole Superman Doomsday thing that's building up into this Doom story arc that's about to kick off, I have no idea what's happening.
Batman is he's been around for how many years in the DC
this year is his 75th anniversary.
No. In the comics, how long has he been Batman
in the continuity?
Yeah.
I think everybody has been around for. The first issue of Action Comics takes place 6 years in the past. The reboot of Action Comics in the New 52. Justice League, the first arc of it takes place the same year, and then it skips forward a year, so it's 5 years in the past. So I believe now everything's up to date. So everyone has been established for 5 years. I think.
I think it's 6. I want to say 6. 5 or 6. Somewhere between there. And Damien. How old is Damien?
Damien's 10. So
how could Batman have met Talia to have Damien?
Well, you could make the argument that while Bruce Wayne was training under Ra's al Ghul or whatever karate master, he met Talia, but there are specific instances where Damien has the cowl of Batman, or he finds the cowl of Batman or something. I think that's from Batman.
This was before the New 52 also, right?
Yeah, that
this
existed.
issue.
I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm saying a lot of things, is maybe it's not so important to nitpick at little things. Yes.
You're one to talk, man.
I know. I am a universal hater. I don't like most things. But I'm kind of starting to realize that it's a little impractical to pinpoint every consistency in comics, because a lot of those consistencies are just stupid. But at the same time, do you really want to read an ongoing series that doesn't pay attention to its own continuity? Nah.
I also don't want to jump onto an ongoing series that never ends.
That's true. That's very true.
In the middle of a story that's been going on for 100 issues, I don't want to do that.
I'm sorry I talked so much.
You have a lot to say.
I do. If you like what I'm saying, though, you should follow me on Twitter and hear refined 140 character versions of everything that comes out of my mouth.
He uses a lot of big words. You're smart. You'll like it. Follow him on Twitter, Tumblr as well.
Yes, ventimike.tumblr.com or at Mike Ventimiglia. I recommend going to the Tumblr page because it's easier to spell and there's a link to my Twitter.
Boom.
And if you got hate, let me know because I'd love to hear it.
We're also in a band together.
We play music.
Bywater rock and roll. Or Bywater music if you don't get the sarcasm. And we're writing a comic book. He's writing a comic book. I'm illustrating a comic book. You don't need to know that yet, because we didn't do anything yet. As always, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Wulff. Like this video if you like it. Subscribe if you really like it. Leave comments. Argue with him.
Please.
Because I would like to see that.
I'm completely open to insights, input, ideas. Just don't call me a bitch, because that seems really popular on the internet, and it's really offensive. Any other word will do. Just
preferably argue with him on Facebook.
Yes, please.
YouTube will take the argument, but Facebook would be better. Thank you guys very much. Have a good week.
I mean, that should never be the measure of a perfect game, is whether a website gives it a 10.
A lot of people consider Ocarina of Time as the holy grail.
Right.
The best game ever.
Right.
Masterpiece. That game's a piece of shit. Let me tell you why. The point of this game, officially, is to do a bunch of tricks and destroy shit to gain points. Unofficially, the goal is to see how broken you can make this game. And that's where the real fun is.
Since the 80s, Daredevil has often been the best thing Marvel puts out. Of course, that's not to say that it's been 30 years of solid hits. There hasn't. There have been some stinkers in there. The Shadowland story was pretty bad, and there was a period in the 90s where Daredevil looked like this. Extreme.